on the next On Cue.
It came from Lydia just saying, "Do you have a vacuum cleaner?" Yes, I do. It just became part of my world.
I think working with Lydia exceeded every expectation that I possibly could have had.
I saw it as a great opportunity again to challenge myself as an artist, to be able to find new ways of exploring the creative process.
The world premiere of Swedish-Polish choreographer Lidia Wos's Snapshots Behind Closed Doors. We'll go behind the scenes with Lydia and co-creator Robert Karlsson, the cast and composer Gavin Stewart, and visit with Linda Zackerson, cultural counselor of the Embassy of Sweden in Washington, D.C.
I have experienced myself during these months is an unexpected intimacy.
That's all just ahead on tonight's On Cue. Every journey has its beginnings. For tonight's world premiere of Snapshots of an Empty Crowd by choreographer Lidia Wos and co-director Robert Karlsson, that journey begins on a fall afternoon in rainy Sundsvall, Sweden in 2014. Company E had been invited to perform as a part of a festival there, and during one of our conversations with Robert, we sat down with him and said, as we say to everyone, whose work, choreographically, have you seen recently that you find fresh, interesting, intriguing? Who should we know about? Well, Robert smiled for just a moment, looked to the side, tilted his head a little bit and said, well, I like a choreographer named Lidia Wos. Of course, she's my wife. And so began a journey that extends through Washington, D.C., Shanghai, China, and here, tonight, on the small screen. Camera rolling, music standing by. Let's let these guys go through. Jamal coming to you. Camera on you and other person. Go typing. Cast into place. Over Jamal's shoulder. Sound. Go, please. Cast go. Over a 2-week period with Lydia and Robert in Malmö, Sweden, and the dancers in the DC metropolitan area, separated not just by an ocean, but by a 6-hour time difference, more than 5 hours of material was created. From there, Lydia and Robert had to decide what to keep and what to set aside. Here are the first 2 sections of a 4-section suite, Snapshots of a Lost Crowd, with a little bit of extra insight from Lydia on how she made it, what she was thinking, and how the process went.
Hi, my name is Lidia Wos and I'm a Polish-Swedish choreographer and dancer based in Malmö in south of Sweden. I got a question from Paul and Company E if I was interested in working with the dancers from a distance. And to be honest, I didn't have any clear idea of what the outcome would be when I started my first Zoom rehearsal with the dancers. I wanted to use the dancers' different personalities. I also wanted to find a way to use the different environment that they were stuck in. I gave them different tasks, inspiration images and an introduction to my own movement language. And we really had a lot of fun together. I am very impressed with the dancers' creativity and how much they trusted me. I made them throw themselves out in the most silly and strange challenges. So the first thing I want to present to you is a short film or chapter that introduce the dancers to you and to give you a glimpse of what we were doing those weeks together.
Hey, my name is Gavin Stewart and I am composing music for Company E's Shelter project. Lidia Wos is doing the choreography, and together we're trying to create a world that's unique to the dancers, but also something that we are all kind of going through right now, which is being at home. So what I've had the dancers do is go around and sample sounds from around their home, and I am cleaning up that audio now to turn it into rhythmic tracks and sound effects for the music that I put together. Here I've loaded in some sounds from Sam and Ryan's apartment. This is Falling on the Floor. And then I cleaned them up and they sound like this. So once I clean up all the audio tracks, what I do is I load them into my keyboard and then I start to play around with them. Here's what that sounds like. So I do something like that, and then I basically create a beat, and here's a beat that I created with Ryan and Sam's sounds. So that's just a little bit of what I've been working on. I've got a bunch more stuff coming, a little bit more melodic, a little bit more piano stuff, and looking forward to sharing that with you.
One of the starting tasks I gave to the dancers was that I wanted them to express what they missed the most from their normal life. And just being isolated in their own homes created some kind of very claustrophobic feeling. In the next chapter, we try to catch some of that feeling of being locked in and what that makes to us. So let me introduce the next chapter, Snapshots Behind Closed Doors.
And for me, one of the phrases was built on the idea of missing the outdoors, missing hiking and climbing, climbing trees, hiking mountains, all of that. So that's kind of where the diving over the couch came from, because it was climbing up a mountain and then kind of jumping into a lake.
We'll come back with more of Lidia and Robert's snapshots in just a little bit. But for the moment, let's check in with Philip and the Teacher's Corner.
Ba-da-da, ba-da-da, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-da-da. Hi everyone. This week we're going to be focusing on how to plan your lessons and how to prepare your materials to be super successful in the virtual classroom. So come along, let's get started. We're first going to go over some considerations that aren't really a big deal in a physical classroom, but can make a huge difference in a virtual classroom. So here are a couple of considerations that you might need to think about before starting your first lessons. The first biggest consideration would be the number of participants you are having in your classroom. So if you were having 100 people versus 2 people, that makes a big difference in how you're going to offer feedback. It's super hard to give 100 people feedback, whereas with 2 people, it's a little bit more intimate. Or does it not even matter? Sometimes if you're providing material that is being sent out, like a follow-along tap video, then it really doesn't matter in your lesson planning. The second consideration I would say would be space. Do you as a teacher have enough room to demonstrate? Do you have enough distance away from your recording device to be seen fully? Or how about your participants? Do they have enough room? Sometimes my students don't have long spaces for great across the floor exercises, so I have to tailor my lesson plans for some center work or some great floor work. Another consideration, which might kind of seem like a dull one, is the type of class. There's a huge difference between a tap class and a ballet class in material and type of teaching. So in a tap class, your students might need a tap floor, and if they don't have a tap floor, what are some other options? Maybe putting socks over their tap shoes so they can sort of hear the sounds without scratching their floors. Or in a ballet class, what if they don't have a ballet bar? Can they use their kitchen counters? What is stable enough, like maybe a chair, to use as a ballet bar? Another consideration would be how long the session is. Let's say you have both the options of Instagram Live and Facebook Live. If you're holding a hip hop class, Instagram only has an hour cap. So if you were to go over that hour cap, your students would have to join another live video. Whereas Facebook lets you go as long as you want. Maybe the consideration is where you have the most people following you, on Facebook or on Instagram. The last and the biggest consideration for me as a teacher by far is how I'm going to offer feedback to my students. So with Instagram and Facebook, the only way I can get feedback from my students is if they write in the comments or if I have a student go live with me. If I'm having 200 students, I can't really give all 200 students feedback through that format. Whereas for Zoom, I can have a conversation directly to my students. That being said, if it's a drop-in class and you are looking for more people and more spread of the information, Instagram and Facebook are great. People can drop into class, they can drop out, they can share with their friends, it's great. Whereas you don't really get that same offering on Zoom. I'm gonna do a quick recording on how I might run a class on Instagram. So here I go, I'm gonna click live, I'm gonna get started. Here I am live, and I'm gonna get started with my hip hop combo. So here I am teaching. Give me that catfish, knock on the door. Give me that catfish, knock on the door. Thank you, Mr. Chris Sondiflex. And I have my star pupil joining. Here's Kelsey. Hey, I have other people joining. Oh, this is great, this is great. Okay, so here in this format, I am having my live class. You can wave at people. I have 3 participants watching. I can check to see how many people are watching. So the only feedback is if people give comments below on this app. If I were to showcase our star student, I could invite them. Let's see. Oh, look here, go live with. Great. Oh my gosh, it's Kelsey going live with me. Say hi, everyone. So here's a way I could give feedback in real time, but this is only with one student at a time. Maybe Kelsey just rocked out the combo and wanted to share. Oh, there we go. Give me that catfish, knock on the door. Maybe she wanted to show off her mad skills. Okay, so with this platform, I can't really share multiple people, so star students only. So I hope by going through some of these considerations, it's made you think about how you can be more successful in the virtual classroom. If you think I forgot something, please comment below. Hope to see you guys next week. Bye now.
Company E is a repertory company, meaning that we look for choreographers from all over the world. That's how we came to find Lidia. Being from Washington, D.C. means we're also in close proximity to the different embassies from around the world. When it came time for this part of the shelter project, turning to Lidia from Sweden, we went to the Embassy of Sweden in conjunction with the Ministry of Culture and the House of Sweden. Linda Zackerson, the cultural counselor, was extraordinary in providing help and support for this program, and we had a chance to chat with her for just a few minutes just before she finished her assignment in DC, wrapping up to head back to Stockholm. Here's a brief moment from our chat with Linda.
How have things changed? And for the Embassy of Sweden and the House of Sweden, you're so active culturally in Washington. I would imagine that sort of mid-March, everything got turned upside down. What's it been like for you?
Yes, it was. I mean, it was very fast. On the March 6th, we opened 3 new exhibitions here, and a couple of hundred people at the opening had the possibility to enjoy them. And then just 1 week later, we shut it all down. So, and we had to learn, many of us, how it is to work from home, how to continue to connect to the world and to our American friends, and also how to think about doing art and culture accessible, even in these new conditions. So right ahead, we actually decided to bring our exhibitions online instead, and we opened House of Sweden exhibitions.com, where they can be viewed. And we continued to start collaborating even closer than before with partners around the country and also back in Sweden to share good stuff with each other and to maximize the audiences and help each other on creating possibilities for Swedish arts and culture to reach out to the American, but in different ways.
Well, and that's kind of leading us directly into the conversation about Lidia and Robert's work, because they were supposed to be with us in person, in May, and theoretically we're 1 week away from the world premiere of their show at the Kennedy Center, but instead we had to pivot. But it's been fascinating to watch them create in a whole different way. And, you and everybody at the House of Sweden and the Embassy were so supportive of this. You kind of just jumped in and said, yes, sure, let's try it.
Yes, of course. It's our job to help facilitate and make it easier for you to create new ways for the arts to survive and develop.
What's your sense of what happens in the future?
Well, I think many parallel things. I think there is one risk of a big fatigue in Zoom meetings and in also like the constant stream of like the overload of things to choose from. So I think we will all get pickier and pickier when it comes to quality and density. That we don't have as much time, and we don't have time for things that are not excellent. And I think that's a good thing. So we all have to like shape up more and more, I think, for every day. I think on the other hand, what I have experienced myself during these months is an unexpected intimacy in many of the conversations. A closeness, to the ones you're speaking with, also because they are in their homes, sometimes with kids in their laps, or, in surroundings where you can get a little bit more piece of who they are, and also that we're all vulnerable in this situation. I mean, it's an existential time, and we have to think about what's important to us. And I think it actually cuts out some of the crap that we're sometimes, talking about. We have to get down to business faster, and we have to open up, expose ourselves. And I think that has been fascinating.
Linda Zackerson, one of the truly great cultural counselors here in Washington, D.C., and someone we will miss a great deal as she heads back to Sweden. You can find our complete conversation with Linda, audio issues from Zoom and all, on our website. In the meantime, it's time to go back and look at the last two sections of Lidia and Robert's Snapshots from a Lost Crowd. Here are parts 3 and 4.
Everyone was using these objects and things that they were connected to, and all of my things were miles and miles away from me. But I think that's really when I got into the imaginative state, and I really tried to imagine this empty room as so many different spaces. Like, what is it to do a solo / like love dance with a t-shirt? And then what does it mean for me to have a battle with my suitcase, and me trying to turn my suitcase into my best friend, which kind of speaks to the things that we're going through during quarantine, like these really random things, or you become attached to, because there is simply nothing else.
In the next chapter, we have been focusing on only one of the dancers, Jamal Abrams. He spent his time in an almost empty room, and we have created a chapter with clips only from his work. The result became some kind of claustrophobic and schizophrenic dream. I'm very interested in all the small details, and I love to fill my creations with many layers, unexpected twist and surreal humor. I must, however, admit that I couldn't have found all those layers in my own work without the help of assistant from my husband, Robert. He is really familiar with my way of thinking and have a good sense for what I'm looking for. And he also has his own way of working and thinking visually.
As Lydia mentioned before, the material consists of more than 500 video clips from the 10 dancers. And I think we could have continued and to produce like one chapter every day for more than 1 year from this very rich material. And all the time finding new stories in the same material. It's so fun to go through all this material afterwards and to find new, different ways of combining the different video clips. And still, after all these days working, we still are so surprised when we find new ways of reading and interpret the material.
In the last chapter that we will present to you today, you will get to know different ways to approach the noble art of reading.
As we wrap up tonight, we want to say thank you to Lidia and Robert and to the members of the company for the crazy, interesting work that you saw even some of tonight. There were 5 hours of video. And also to the outgoing cultural counselor at the Embassy of Sweden, Linda Zachrisson, for the generosity of the Embassy and the Ministry of Culture and the House of Sweden for making it possible for us to even begin this project and bring it to you tonight. Next week, we turn our attention to Spain. Jesus Romero Gamó, the first choreographer from Spain in our Shelter series, and the premiere of his work.
O amor, ¿qué haré yo con toda esta movilidad? In English would be something like, oh love, what will I do with all this mobility? And I thought it was a nice question that I could share with this group of dancers via Zoom, and that we could think together what to do with all this mobility that we have built, with all this awareness of the body, with all this love for expression through the body.
We look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks very much for being with us. Have a great week. Good night.